I was honored to be put in this important role, even though I knew of the dire straits of our army. But then he told me, no German field marshal is ever captured alive. The situation continued to worsen, and I soon proved him wrong. I was captured in a cellar the next day, alive. The Battle of Stalingrad ended on February 2nd, 1943, when the Germans ceased their resistance. Hitler, furious about his first loss, blamed his generals instead of recognizing that the fault was his own. The losses suffered by both sides were terrible, though the Russians lost even more. Only 5,000 German soldiers returned home alive, while 150,000 soldiers were killed and 91,000 taken prisoner. 300,000 soldiers from the Axis side, including Germany's allies, were lost. 500,000 people, both soldiers and civilians, were killed or captured on the Russian side. This defeat had another very important effect, though. The German people had begun to lose faith in their military and their leadership, while the Allied power saw a boost in morale.
Until Stalingrad, we believed that our forces were invincible. It was as if no one could stop us. But then we lost this battle, and everything was different. So many of our men had been killed or captured, a shock to us all. This defeat will douse the burning flame of victory we Germans had enjoyed for so long.
After the Germans' defeat in Stalingrad, they began their retreat. However, before they were completely defeated, they launched one last major attack, Kursk. There was an indent in the German army's lines at Kursk, causing Germany to plan its capture. Kursk was a Russian railway town, and the Germans knew that if they captured it, they would be stopping a fifth of the Russian manpower. The Germans' plan was to encircle Kursk and capture it. This offensive is of decisive importance. It must end in swift and decisive success. Every commander, every private soldier must be indoctrinated with awareness of the decisive importance of this offense. Victory at Kursk will be a beacon for the whole world. Germany prepared for its attack, with 900,000 soldiers, 2,700 tanks, and 2,000 aircraft. They were preparing for attack and planned to fight until they won. Russia was also gathering soldiers in defense of Kursk. They had 1.3 million soldiers, 3,600 tanks, and 2,400 planes. The Russian defensive tactic was simple: allow Germany to wear itself out. On July 5th of 1943, the battle began. Russia began by bombarding German troops, causing disorganization in the German troops. Germany then began their offensive tactics, gaining 6 miles in the first 24 hours of the war. But their advancements came at a cost. In those first 24 hours, 25,000 men had been killed or wounded, and many tanks and aircraft lost. The battle continued in a similar pattern. The Russians began to find spots in the German line that were vulnerable. The battle was turning in favor of the Russians.
I remember being stationed at Orel in July. The Germans were losing men left and right, and my commander announced that we were going to begin a counterattack on the Germans. Some of us weren't so sure as to how the battle would go, but we knew that the Germans were getting weaker, and that if we wanted to win the war, we needed to take advantage of this time. As it turns out, our commander made the right decision, and the battle was in our favor that night. We outnumbered the Germans 2-1, and I don't believe they were able to reach that reinforcement. Over the next few days, we continued to push the Germans back. In a little under a month, we gained Orel.
While the battle at Orel was occurring, there was another battle at Prokhorovka. This was the biggest tank battle in World War II. After these battles, the Russians held a strong lead. Unlike the battle at Stalingrad, at Orel, Hitler allowed his troops to withdraw. During this withdrawal, the Russian Air Force continued to attack Germans, exhausting them. By August 23rd, Russia broke through the German defenses in Kharkov and retook the city. The Battle of Kursk was over and Russia had won. Germany, however, had major losses. 500,000 men were killed, wounded, or missing. What good fortune for governments that the people do not think!
By invading Russia in Operation Barbarossa, Germany made sure that they would never again dominate with blitzkrieg, Germany's best military tactic. When Russia finally started pushing Germany back at Moscow, they showed Germany and the world that there was a way to counteract it. Now, if Germany or another country chose to attack Russia, Germany would be at a disadvantage because their military tactic had just backfired for the first time and their spirits were low. The defending country would be at an advantage because they knew that victory was possible.
Operation Barbarossa's effect on the Second World War is significant. It changed the whole hierarchy of the war. Before it took place, Germany had been conquering left and right, winning battles and generally doing very well. Afterwards, Germany's outlook wasn't very hopeful. Their defeat against the Soviet Union was embarrassing and a significant morale diminisher for the German citizens and soldiers. This effect on World War II, one of the most important wars in all of history, has a profound effect on the present. For example, if the Germans had decided against Barbarossa, maybe they would have won the war. Everyone would have to make reparations to Germany, thus fueling Hitler's regime. As he said, the victor will never be asked if he told the truth. No one would question Hitler's morals, and his nation would expand. Those expansions would be placed under German command, and Hitler would gain their troops and allegiance. The Holocaust would no longer be a German event. It would be a world event, and it would still be going on today. Operation Barbarossa is also a chief contributor in one of the most ill-will periods of time in American history, the Cold War. The Cold War was a period of extreme tension and hatred between the USA and the Soviet Union. This can be traced, in part, to the outcome of World War II and therefore Barbarossa. Because Germany invaded the Soviet Union and lost the war, the Soviet Union and the United States both benefited greatly. As a result, they both became key world powers. Naturally, with so much power, they became rivals, striving to outdo each other. All this tension builds until there is no hiding it anymore, and the Cold War begins.
Often said that World War II was won with Russian lives. Had it not been for Operation Barbarossa, not only the outcome of the war would have changed, but also the entire world's history and each one of our lives.